Stop lying to yourself. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another video. What you need is to make a radical decision. Discipline yourself. Not just when you feel like it or when the environment is perfect. No, because every time you procrastinate, every time you hesitate, it only reinforces your weak identity. You tell yourself you can't. This is not the time when you are not ready. How long are you going to keep negotiating with your mind? Today I am going to challenge you to crack your head. Stop feeling sorry and become someone who acts without hesitation. Because discipline is not a talent. It is an identity that is built with every decision you make. Are you tired of starting and quitting? Dreaming big but living simply? If so, listen to this. The life you want is not built on intention. It is built on action. And that action begins in the first 5 seconds of making a decision. Are you brave enough to break that pattern to become focused, engaged, and achieve results? Because if you don't do it yourself, no one else will do it for you. So get ready, because in the next few minutes, you're not only going to learn how to be disciplined, you're going to decide that you're ready. That decision could change your destiny forever. Before you begin, I want you to do something great.
Go right now with a comment and write this phrase.
I will go beyond my limits from now on. I am a resilient person, not doing things just for the sake of doing things. Participate. Do it to reschedule. Think of it as recording it in your subconscious as an act of commitment. Because every word you write intentionally turns it into a direct command to your brain. If you are truly ready for your life transformation, start by declaring who you are and what you are going to do. Write it down, feel it, then do it. Number 1, reformulate discipline as a function of love. Whenever we hear the word discipline, we usually associate it with rigidity, effort, and discomfort. Many people see it as some kind of punishment that they have to go through in order to achieve results. But what if I told you that true discipline is not born of punishment, but of love? If you understand that every time you choose to be disciplined, you do not do it because you hate yourself or because you are not good enough, but because you love yourself deeply, then that change of perspective changes everything. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to conform to a rigid routine or living under a military regime. It is a way to protect your energy and maintain the health of your mind, to respect your body and your goals. It is a way of saying to yourself, I am important enough to do what is best for me, even when I do not feel like it. It is a silent language of self-esteem that is manifested in concrete actions. Think about how you treat the people you love. You do not give anything to someone you love that you do not allow to be hurt, you not letting it destroy itself. Instead, you try to grow healthy and feel at home in peace. Now imagine applying the same thing, self-care that is based on discipline. In loving yourself, you don't exercise because you hate your body, but because you want it to perform well for years to come. You don't stop eating junk food to torture yourself, but because you know you deserve better energy, mood, and mental clarity. Will Smith explained, I love myself so much that I won't let it hurt me by eating pizza if I know I'm going to feel bad later. That's the key. You're not denying yourself pleasure. You're putting your well-being first. You're punishing yourself. You're taking care of yourself. Is the embodiment of mature love. That love that thinks long-term, that doesn't let itself get carried away by instant gratification but bets on continuous growth. When you reformulate this discipline, the way to lose that burden is no longer an inner struggle, but a decision of love. Every time you choose to go to bed early, every time you study instead of procrastinating, every time you wake up practicing, you are reaffirming your worth. You are saying, I deserve this. And that's it. It not only gives you results, but it certainly gives you peace. There will be days when you have no motivation. On days when your mind tells you to take a break, remember that that is where true love comes in. A love that protects doesn't give up, even when it's uncomfortable. The more you act from that place, the easier it is to come back because your identity hasn't changed. You are someone who pushes yourself. You are someone who is honored by your vision. The Stoicism of Marcus Aurelius claims that we must live according to our rational and natural nature. It gives us a call to action with virtue and purpose, with discipline, with moderation. Then know. This is not oppression but liberation from chaos, of passing impulses, of desires that distract us from what is important. Because when you love your process, when you understand the reason why you do what you do, discipline stops being painful and starts healing. Number 2, myth. Do what you love. We live in a culture that constantly repeats the phrase as if it's a magic formula for happiness. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. It sounds great, motivating, even inspiring, but that romantic and popular idea can be a dangerous trap if we don't understand it deeply enough. Because even when you do what you love, There will be days when you don't love it. Even the greatest passions have moments of exhaustion and frustration. Routine doesn't mean that doing something you love will make you happy all the time. And that's the real problem with the myth of doing what you love. Many people give up on something as soon as they feel like it's too much to think about. If it's too tiring, if sometimes I'm not excited, then maybe it's not for me. And that's when they give up. But it's not for lack of purpose. It's the lack of discipline. Because what really takes you far is not just passion. It is the ability to maintain yourself constantly, even when enthusiasm, self-discipline disappears. It is the ability to move forward when you feel no motivation to learn, to love the process, even when it is not fun. That is what separates those who achieve from real results. Anyone can start with energy, but only those who learn to maintain commitment in monotony, in discomfort and exhaustion are those who finish a career. When you change the focus from it must be fun and it must be valuable, everything changes. You no longer do things just for the emotion, but for the purpose. You no longer wake up alone when you feel like it, but because you know that each step brings you closer to the life you want. You begin to understand that loving what you do does not mean loving everything, both ways, but to respect both are goals that you want to achieve through any difficulty for them. And here's the secret. The more disciplined you are, the more you learn to enjoy the process, because you see growth, because you acknowledge progress, because you give yourself the awareness of deep satisfaction that does not come from avoiding effort, but from facing it. It is not about seeking momentary emotions, but about building a life that makes sense. Do you want to be a great artist, a successful entrepreneur, a high-performance athlete? Then be prepared to love the boring days. The days when there is no applause, when no one is watching you, when everything seems slow. Because that is where greatness is forged. Not on the stage, but in practice, not in the results, but in the invisible process that no one wants to show. From Stoicism, Seneca teaches us that pleasure is not the highest good. What is truly valuable, he says, is the virtue of acting in accordance with reason and duty, even when pleasure nothing. Today, the Stoics know that expecting everything to be pleasant is an illusion. That is why they cultivate the habit of bearing with dignity what happens in life. I will introduce you to the Stoic discipline, born of pleasure, born of character. Character is formed when you do what is right, even if you don't feel like it. The next time you are faced with a task that no longer excites you, don't run away. Don't think there is something wrong with you. Think that is where the real work begins. That is where you cross the line between amateur and professional. Amateurs need to feel pleasure in every moment. Professionals love the process. Don't expect to enjoy every part of your journey. Keep going so that you don't live expecting everything to be easy. Live with a focus on the value you are building. Respect the difficult moments as an inevitable and necessary part of the process. Don't resist the effort. Celebrate. Because every minute that you keep moving forward even without desire is a proof of your commitment. When you learn to love those minutes, you really do it. When you face difficulties, remember all the times you chose to move forward. Even when it's not easy, you will find more strength. Number 3, identify your discipline style. Discipline is not achieved the same way for everyone. And one of the reasons why many people fail in their attempts to become more disciplined is because they follow a model that is not in line with their nature. They try to copy someone else's strategy without asking whether the approach really fits their way of life. That's why it's so important to identify your personal discipline style. Because what works for one person may be a recipe for failure for another. There are 2 main styles, moderation and abstinence. Both are valid, both can lead you to the same goal, greater personal control and more regular life habits. But the paths are different, and knowing which one is yours can make the difference between moving forward, strong, or getting stuck in a constant cycle of frustration. Moderation is the style of those who can enjoy a little indulgence without losing their balance, with those who can eat just a piece of cake and move on. They can take a day off without it turning into a week of neglect. They can do it in a free afternoon without it disrupting their routine. This style requires a lot of self-control, refining the ability to measure and regulate impulses without depriving themselves of pleasure altogether. But there is another group that works better with total abstinence. They are the ones who, if they try one bite, want to finish it. If they take a day off, it will cost them dearly if they go back. If they make an exception, it will justify a lot. More for this type of person, the best way to stand firm is to not negotiate. Don't open the door, don't initiate. Because they know that a small concession can be a big fall. No, there are styles that are superior to others. The important thing is to identify which one is yours. And this is not done by theory, but by observation. Pay attention to your behavior. Ask yourself, can I control my impulses when I let myself go a little, or do I lose control of the exceptions that motivate me, or do I mess up what has worked for me in the past? In this case, the answer will show you the way. This principle is supported by scientists who study self-management and self-control. They show that people who adapt their strategies to their personal style are more successful in maintaining healthy habits. It's not about having more willpower, but about designing a system that works with the way you operate. Because when you are in tune with your own psychology, discipline flows with less friction. From a Stoic philosophical perspective, this idea also holds true. The Stoics taught that the path to virtue is not unique. It requires knowledge the self that Epictetus spoke of. Living according to your nature is not your goal. Not to forgive yourself, but to understand it, to master it. The Stoics did not try to be someone else, but to be the best they could be within their own limits and possibilities. If that requires you to avoid something that drags you into excess, avoid it. If you can react to it, do so in moderation without losing control. The key is to act with wisdom, not with blind rigidity. So take some time today to evaluate how you might be approaching your discipline. Have you been trying to ease yourself when you really need to cut it off at the root? Or maybe you have been too strict and it has caused you anxiety. When you can give yourself a little flexibility without losing focus, don't judge yourself. Adjust. When you have clarity, design intentional habits. If you are an abstinent person, don't play with fire. Really cut out what it makes you lose control. If you are a moderate, give yourself space to enjoy, but with structure. Remember that self-discipline is not a fixed mold. It is a personal art, an important internal tuning process. Don't follow someone else's path, but find yours and stick to it. Because when you choose a strategy that is consistent with your discipline style, it stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a natural choice. And in that choice, your freedom is constantly being forged. The power number EMP to say this is a choice. There are times when everything changes, and it is not when you achieve your goals. It is when you realize that you are not forced. You are not here as a punishment or because of external pressure. All of this, every difficult step, every day of effort. You are doing this because you choose it, because you have decided it. When you take the true awareness that everything is a choice, you stop feeling like you are pushing a burden, and you begin to experience something much greater. The purpose of simple actions to tell you that this is a choice to reprogram your mind, to change effort into power. You no longer endure something that you experience. By conquering it, you are not fulfilling an obligation. You are responding to the call because you might not do it. You could give up. You could get distracted or run away like many people do. But when you focus on the process as a conscious choice, you find that there is also pleasure in the effort, dopamine in overcoming the difficulty of commitment. It stops being a punishment and becomes practice. You choose to practice, you choose to read, you choose to work on yourself, you choose to steps because you do not see them as part of the journey, but as obstacles to what you want. But when you focus on the process as a conscious choice, you find that there is also pleasure in the effort, dopamine in overcoming the difficulties of commitment, stopping being a punishment and becoming a practice. You choose to practice, you choose to read, you choose to work on yourself. You choose to persist when everything invites you to give up. When you repeat that truth within yourself, this is your choice. Connect with the strongest part of you. Notice the part that does not react, but decides that this change of approach is essential, especially in the worst moments. The difficulties when your body hurts, when you are exhausted, when you feel like you are not progressing. In those moments, do not repeat that you have to do it. Say, I choose this because I want to with that sentence. You give back control, and control gives back the perception of power over your decisions. Activating dopamine that associated with effort is more motivating, deeper, and more sustainable than external rewards. Did you know that the brain reacts differently when you do something out of choice, even though it is difficult? Neuroscience supports this. When you realize that it is a difficult task, you voluntarily do it. The brain activates the reward center, which increases resistance, reduces feelings of fatigue, and improves concentration. So, effort is not a myth. It is possible if you face choices not out of obligation. From Stoicism, this is closely related to freedom. Epictetus said, "The important thing is not what happens to you, but how you interpret it." One of the most powerful interpretations is this: you are not forced by life. You choose how to live it. You take active responsibility for your growth. You choose the pain that strengthens you rather than the pleasure that distracts you. The Stoic put him to sleep but did not avoid the effort. He held him because he knew that in an effort there is virtue. So don't run away when faced with adversity. Don't put yourself in the role of the victim who suffers every step of the way. Remind yourself every day that this is your choice. You chose this path because you have a vision, because there is something inside you that knows you can do more, because there is a stronger, wiser, freer version of you waiting on the other side of the effort. Every time you choose to move forward, even when it's not easy, you will find it. Do it. That phrase is a personal mantra when you struggle to get up, when you sit in frustration, when pain visits you. I do this because I choose it, and if you choose this, then you can do this. Because there is nothing more powerful than the mind that chooses its path. Even when the path is burning, if you do it that way, yes, you maintain that awareness. You will find that you will not only reach your goal, but you will enjoy every step as a manifestation of your inner strength. Because that's basically the truth. Number 5, honesty with yourself is the key to improving discipline. Real improvement doesn't start when you decide to wake up earlier or when you try to follow a new routine. It starts when you look at yourself honestly, brutally. You tell the truth without excuses, without embellishment, without justification. Because as long as you continue to cover up your mistakes, you're stuck in them. The truth of growth begins with the courage to admit the mistakes you've made. Be honest with yourself. It's uncomfortable. It requires humility. It requires you to face your reflection without a filter. Recognize that you're procrastinating, that you're wasting your time, that distraction you're not addressing, that body that you talk a lot about your goals, but do very little about. And it hurts at first because admitting failure leaves you with a heavy burden. But it also gives you strength. Because while you're living in denial, you can't change. But when you accept, you start to change. Take a break, close your eyes, and ask yourself honestly, what am I doing that is holding me back from the life I want? What behaviors do I have that I repeat even though I know they are sabotaging me? What reasons do I believe? Most people don't have the courage to answer these questions. That's why they stay in the same place year after year. But you're not here to justify yourself. You're here to grow, to move forward. And you can't move forward with lies. Take some time to write down what you're doing wrong. Yes, be specific on paper. Name the habits that are holding you back. Do the behaviors that you repeat over and over again, knowing they're not doing you any good. These mental patterns that are sabotaging your focus aren't about punishing you. They're about having clarity. Because what you don't name doesn't mean you can change. Once you have it, list it. Don't try to change everything. Sometimes you don't have to. Just pick one negative habit. You can start changing today might be to stop using your phone as soon as you wake up. Maybe it's to stop putting off what you know you can do. Maybe it's to stop eating without a conscience or talking to yourself with violence. No matter what matters is that you decide to face it with courage. Discipline is not just built with willpower, but it is built with honesty, with the ability to tell yourself, this is not working, and act. Therefore, discipline is born from the respect you have for yourself, and that respect begins when you decide not to lie to yourself anymore. From Stoicism, this practice has its roots. Epictetus taught that the first step to virtue is to know oneself clearly. No one can improve what they dare not see. Marcus Aurelius, in a meditation he wrote to himself with brutal sincerity, did not punishing oneself, but to correct oneself in order to stay on the path to virtue. The excellence of the Stoic does not know about self-control deceiving with illusions. They know that every day is an opportunity to polish character, and to do that, you must look inward with courage. You must be the first to see his mistakes in order to eliminate them. And that is not weakness, it is the greatest show of strength. Because he who deceives himself will never change. But he who faces will be free, so do it. Write, face, choose, act. You don't have to do it perfectly alone. You have to make it happen every moment. Continuous change with honesty is worth more than 1,000 hidden intentions. Because every authentic step you take from the truth brings you closer to real discipline. Discipline is not a science born of fear, but of a commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. Remember, who dares to look at yourself with looking at yourself with the truth has progressed, because he is no longer trapped in a lie. He has moved. He has evolved. If you maintain that habit, the habit of not lying to yourself about everything else, the determination will come. The focus will come. Self-discipline all begins when you decide to tell yourself the truth and then act. Number 6, don't overthink and don't limit yourself. How many times have you almost started something and didn't? You did it because you overthought. You thought about what could go wrong. You wondered if you were good enough. Did you wonder what they would say? You thought so much that the action froze. And when the time passed, the only thing left was the uncomfortable feeling of not having tried. Overthinking is not reflection, it's paralysis. Sabotage disguised as analysis. You don't have to have everything in place to start. You don't have to feel. You certainly don't have to be ready. The only thing you need is to decide to act even with fear, doubt, even without a guarantee of success. Because action is not the result of belief, but belief is the cause of a person being confident because he acts, not because he thinks. Clarity does not always precede action. Sometimes it only comes after. The problem with overthinking is that your mind becomes your biggest obstacle. You create scenarios that do not exist, projects of failure that have not even happened. Multiply your fears and convince you that you can't. But here's the truth. The discomfort that stops you is not reality, but your interpretation of it. The only way to stop it is to act. Take the first step even if it's awkward, even if you're not sure, even if you don't know exactly what happens next. Because every real step you take breaks your cycle of doubt. You don't have to wait to have confidence. You can move forward without it. You can create it. It is in the journey that the magic of action changes you. As you do that, every time you act against your own will, remember to show it that it has no control. You teach it that you decide that you are in charge. And in the process, you become stronger, more focused, more free. The trap of overanalysis is to think that you have to understand everything first in order to move. But that is not the reality. Most of the great breakthroughs in personal information do not come when everything is clear, but when you decide to move in the midst of the fog. Because as you walk, the next step appears. As you move forward, you learn by doing something new that is discovered as you move. From Stoic philosophy, this idea is very supportive. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, said, "Inhibiting action promotes action." What is it that prevents you from being away for others? The words of the mental block that you feel, doubt, fear, paralysis, are not there to stop you, but to be overcome, and you only overcome them by acting on them. The Stoics knew that thinking too much about what you don't control will rob you of the energy to act on what you can control. And what you can always do is control your next decision. If there's something you want to do, something you know you should do it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for it to feel confident. Don't wait for doubt to disappear. All doubt begins with fear. It begins with uncertainty, but it begins because every step is certain to come. Doubt weakens, and what seemed impossible becomes possible. What seemed confusing becomes manageable. It becomes clear that you don't have to change your whole life today. You just have to do one thing you've been putting off. Maybe it's sending a message. Maybe it's turning off the network and working 1 hour without distraction. Maybe go for a walk, write down ideas, record a video, open that book. Break the habit. Do something, don't overthink. Do it because deep down you know that overthinking is costing you time, energy, and opportunities. If you're wondering, what happens if I fail? The answer is simple. You will fail if you don't do it. You try. But if you act, even if you stumble, you'll be closer to growing. Because action changes you, shapes you, builds you. Don't let your mind convince you that you can't. Show it that you can even if you don't fully believe it yet. Remember, overthinking creates limitations that don't exist. Action destroys them. So stop wondering if you can and start doing it. Because that's when you decide to act. Fear loses its power. Number 7, inconsistency appears when no one tells us. We observe that most people do not fail when they are surrounded by others, but when they are alone. It is not during a meeting or in the middle of an important conversation that they break commitments. It is in the room when the alarm goes off and no one else is there to hear it. It is when no one is looking that true discipline is applied. The evidence of inconsistency does not show itself in front of the world, but in intimacy, in the invisible, in what only you know. And there is a simple explanation for that. When there is no social pressure, the mind looks for easy justifications, rationalizing that putting off today is okay. Today I deserve it. It is a gentle sentence that seems harmless, but it has a powerful force. Installed as a silent, unconscious habit, each of these small concessions begins to weaken the structure of your discipline little by little. You move away from the standards you want to hold yourself to. Consider the example of people who sleep with their partners. They rarely press the button, snooze the alarm. Why? Because there are other people present. There is an external awareness that indirectly strengthens the commitment. But if he is alone, the temptation to postpone arises by forcing the mind to know that it can fail without anyone noticing. And that is the danger when there are no witnesses. It seems that there are no consequences, but the consequences are there. Not in the eyes of others, but in the loss of self-esteem. It is important to understand that the most important observer is not who is outside yourself. You are your conscience, your internal commitments, your personal standards. The key is to build a relationship with yourself that is strong enough that you do not need external supervision. If at first there is a strategy that must be able to help you simulate that presence, one of the most powerful ways is to imagine that there is always someone watching you. The effort may sound strange, but it works. Think about how you would act if you knew that someone you admired was watching your every decision. Are you going to give up or give a little more than a sense of responsibility? Even if it's just an illusion, awakening a higher level of presence mentally takes you out of autopilot. Another useful technique is to design an environment that reinforces your habits even in solitude. For example, if you commit to exercising every morning, leave your workout clothes ready the night before. If you want to stop looking at your phone when you wake up, leave your phone somewhere else. A clean environment. Strategically placed objects are subtle ways to program your mind, because you can't always trust in your own strength. But you can design your environment to work for you. From a Stoic perspective, this is absolutely coherent. The words character is tested in solitude. The Stoics knew that true virtue is not shown in public, but when you are alone, when no one praises you, when there is no reward in sight. The question is whether you act with integrity even when no one is watching, because that is where true character is formed, not depending on the eyes of others. To do the right thing, they depend on their own internal standards. So if you are struggling with inconsistency today, don't judge yourself, but look at yourself honestly. You only fail when no one tells you. Notice that you let yourself do things you know, keeping you from being the best version of yourself, just because no one will know. Of all this can only change when you elevate your commitment to yourself above the need for external approval. Remember this, what you do is secret to what is inside you is public, because there are not two versions of you. There is only one you, and that version is formed in the dark and the quiet routines, the small everyday actions that no one celebrates. But you do. So act as if there is always someone there watching, because someone really does it. There is only you and no more important witnesses. Number 8 follows a strict schedule. If you want to stop living in chaos, constant improvisation and excuses for not having time, you need something very simple but powerful, a strict schedule. It is not like a prison, but as a structure that enforces your freedom. True freedom is not doing what you want whenever you want, but still having conscious control over your day. And that is achieved through planning. Who does not plan his time is given to whatever comes first, and is almost never the most important thing. A schedule is not a list of obligations. It is a map that guides you towards your goal. Without it, you will turn around at every step when you wake up. With a clear plan, your mind has a management that knows what to focus on, knows what the next step is, so you don't have to decide every moment what to do or spend energy thinking about where to go, getting started. With clarity, it will save your energy and mind, and especially protect you from the silent enemy of self-discipline. Procrastination does not always come from laziness, but often from a lack of structure. Otherwise, you do not know when or how you are going to do something, and your mind is filled with doubts, distracted and scattered. In the end, you feel busy but not moving forward. That is why the first thing you should do every day, or better yet, even the night before, is to sit down and plan your day, not in a rigid way, but with allocations of time blocks. Define your 3 priorities. Reserve space for rest and work to move forward in what you really want. The key here is to stick to your schedule, as if it were a sacred commitment. Do not see it as something you can modify as you wish, because if you treat your own plans as something optional, you will never be confident at any time that you are postponing what you said you would do. You weaken your words not only in front of others, but also in front of yourself, and that costs you more than it cost you. Learn that decisions are not worthy, your intentions are not concrete, and it weakens your discipline. When you decide that your schedule is the law, something changes inside you. You start to value time, not to value yourself. You have to be motivated all the time because you have a system that guides you. That system gives you strength, gives you order, and gives results. From a Stoic perspective, practice is fundamental to the Stoics. They talk about time control as a moral duty. Seneca in his work The Shortness of Life warns that it is not that we have little time, but that we lose a lot. He says, "Most live as if they were to live forever, leaving the important things for later. But the truly Stoic sages live each day as if it were their whole life. For that reason, they organize their time, focus, act with intention, and don't leave the day to luck." If you apply this consistently, you will see immediate changes. You will stop feeling like the day is slipping away from you and start to feel a deep sense of order. Your goals will become more productive, but most of all, more peaceful, because you will no longer be running behind time. You will be directing it, and that puts you in a position of leadership over your life. So don't underestimate the power of a strict schedule. Don't see it as a burden. It is a strategy to regain control, to turn your energy into results, to move forward without depending on your current mood. Make your plan, set your hours, and then stick to them, not out of obligation, but out of respect for the person you are becoming. Because every hour well spent not only brings you closer to your goals, but also reaffirms that you are in charge of your life. Number 9, number 1440. This number seems ordinary, but it actually holds incredible power if you really understand it. 1440 is the number of minutes you have in a day. No more, no less. Whoever you are, young or old, rich or humble, living in a big city or a remote village, we all get the same amount. Every day we receive this deposit of time, and the big difference in our lives is determined by how we use it. When you think about time in terms of days, weeks, or years, it seems like a lot. You feel like you still have room to breathe. So you say, there's still time later. But try to change your perspective. Break that time into 1440 minutes. Your way of thinking will change right away. You begin to realize that every minute has value. The minutes you spend procrastinating, complaining, getting distracted, or doubting yourself are minutes you can't get back. There's no way to save time. That's why this number is so important, because it teaches you to view time with full awareness. People rarely waste time intentionally. They just don't conscious. They live as if they will live forever, as if tomorrow is always guaranteed to come. But when you carry this number 1440 in your mind, you start asking yourself more often, where are my minutes going today? Am I really investing in something important, or am I just trying to survive aimlessly? Life is not about being busy. It is about consciously choosing what you do. Stop saying, I don't have time, and start saying, I haven't made it a priority. Because the truth is, you do have time. You just may not be using it wisely. Many minutes are lost to pointless chatter, distractions from notifications, negative thoughts, or habits that add no value. This is where you can start taking real action. Take the number 1440, write it down, stick it on your wall, make it your phone wallpaper, even use it as a password if you need to, not to stress you out, but as a gentle reminder. Every time you see that number, ask yourself, is what I am doing right now bringing me closer or away from the life I want? Am I conscious of using this time, or am I just letting it pass me by? Research on the psychology of time supports this approach. When a person can see the limits of their time, their level of awareness and management of their time increases. Penance is reduced because a healthy sense of responsibility and urgency arises. Not because of pressure, but because you become clearer about the direction of your life. In Stoicism, this view has long been emphasized. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, wrote in it, on the of life, that life is not really short. It is we who make it seem short by wasting time. He said, we are careful in everything except in spending time as if it were unlimited. The Stoics believed that time is the most precious thing. Once it is gone, it cannot be returned. Therefore, every minute should be used with intention, attention, and clear direction. You don't have to be hard on yourself. Just be present in every action. Even if you, relaxing or watching a movie, do it consciously. Know the reason, enjoy it, and make it a part of a meaningful life. The important thing is that you know why you are doing it, not just doing it because you are used to it. Once you live with awareness of these 1440 minutes, you will realize a big change. Your priorities become clearer. Your energy and focus become more organized. The reasons you used to use often start to lose their power, because now you realize that time is the most important asset, not money or opportunities. Anyone who can manage their minutes well can eventually manage their life better too. So, starting today, make every minute a conscious decision to shape the future you want. Because in the end, it is not the occasional big decision that shapes your life, but the small decisions you make every minute, every day. If you live with intention, then you really live with power. Number 10, visualize a disciplined version of yourself. Self-discipline does not start when you force your body to wake up in the morning or turn off social media to concentrate. True discipline begins in the mind, in the way you see yourself. Because you don't do what you do out of the realm of possibility. You act in a way that is consistent with the identity you have accepted as yours. If you tell yourself that you are a lazy person, always procrastinating and never getting things done, it will start. Then your brain will look for behaviors that validate that story. Not because you hate yourself, but because your brain looks for coherence between what you think and what you do. If you want to change your habits, you must first change your identity. Imagine who your disciplined version of yourself is. How do you think he or she would act? How would he or she respond if he or she didn't do it? What decisions do you make when you wake up? How do you manage your energy during the day? What do you choose when you are tired and tempted to give up? If you can define it clearly, you can start being him. He doesn't want to wait to be disciplined. He wants to act like a disciplined person until the identity is back to you. Write down what that version of you looks like. Describe your routine, your thoughts, your internal language, and your priorities. Then when you're faced with a small decision like procrastinating, eating mindlessly, or looking at your phone for no reason, stop and ask yourself what the disciplined version of me would do. At this point, you don't need a perfect answer, just consistency. Because every action you take either strengthens or weakens your identity. Every time you choose to act like your ideal self, even if it's just a little bit, you're rewriting your personal story. Your mind will start to adapt. As you strongly visualize that new identity and take actions that align with it, your brain will reschedule, change your internal references, and start saying, "This is who we are now." It has great power because you will no longer act out of obligation, but because of your commitment to yourself. You won't do things because you have to, but because that's what people like you do. This isn't fantasy. The science of neuroplasticity shows that our brains physically change when we repeat patterns of thought and action. If you practice seeing yourself as a disciplined person and acting that way consistently, even if it's uncomfortable for your brain at first, you'll start to strengthen those neural pathways. What was once difficult will become more automatic. What once required effort will become habit, and habit creates identity. This early Stoic principle also clearly reflects Epictetus's teaching that we are not what we think, but what we practice. He said that virtue cannot be achieved by great ideas, but by repeated actions every day. The Stoics visualized excellence not as a goal, but as a lifestyle. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly to himself about the class of man he wants to be, and then act on that vision, regardless of the emotions of the moment. So decide today who you want to be. Don't leave it in the abstract. Write it down. Read it out loud. Imagine it in as much detail as possible. Feel it, and then start acting like it. If you are already that person, even if you fail, even if it costs you, even if at first you feel like an imposter. Because this is not about pretending, it is about practicing every decision, every repetition, every moment to act as your disciplined self. You are building a new version of yourself, and the best of all, this new identity is not far away. It is in your next choice, the next morning, and you can do it. Even if you don't have it, you gain discipline. It is not a gift. It is a reflection of who you think you are. So, believe in your best version and start living like him. Because when you do, you are no longer chasing discipline. You become discipline. Number 11, practice the pain list and pleasure. The human mind makes decisions based on two primary forces: the desire to avoid pain and the search for pleasure in everything you do. Whether you wake up in the morning or stay in bed is based on what you think will reduce pain or provide satisfaction. But when you don't use these forces consciously, your mind takes shortcuts, seeks immediate pleasure, and avoids momentary pain without considering the long-term costs. That's why you procrastinate. You put off important things because your mind only sees what's visible in the moment and ignores the cost you'll pay later. This is where the most powerful exercise for strengthening self-discipline comes in. List the pains and pleasures. This isn't something that sounds very profound at first, but when you do it honestly, it changes your perspective completely, because it puts in front of you the reality that you normally avoid seeing, the consequences of your lack of discipline and the rewards that come with it. You're leaving behind. Start by writing a list of your pains. What are you losing every time you choose to procrastinate? Maybe you feel anxiety, self-dissatisfaction, stagnation, frustration, guilt. Maybe your health is failing. Your relationships are suffering. Or your dreams are slipping away, and you don't even realize it. Write it all down clearly. Don't hide behind soft phrases. Be brutally honest. Pain only works as a motor when you face it with your eyes open. Then make a second list of pleasures. What are you gaining? If you decide to stay disciplined, maybe inner peace, a stronger body, a stronger mind, a more solid career, financial freedom, stability, self-esteem. Imagine what your life will be like in 6 months. If you maintain your discipline every day, write it down, feel it, and visualize it in detail. Because when you emotionally connect with that future, you no longer see it as a distant idea. You see it as something real that you can build. This exercise has scientific backing. Visualizing consequences and rewards activates areas of the brain associated with rational decision-making and self-regulation. When you make what is inside real, your mind games are no longer focused on the urge, but on acting on the direction. Clarity replaces reason, and motivation is no longer dependent on the state of the urge. From Stoicism, this principle has very strong roots. The Stoics used pain as a reminder. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about the importance of remembering what happens when one lives dominated by desire and easy pleasure. He said, "We must imagine the consequences of our previous actions in order to act wisely. For the Stoics, pain is not an enemy. It is a teacher, and pleasure is not something objective. It is the consequence of a duty fulfilled. In this way, the next time you lack willpower, don't look for external motivation. Find your own motivation. Read the list of pains you are avoiding. If you choose the right thing, read the pleasures you are building. If you are nurturing it, discipline will connect with you. Take a deep breath and act. Once you are clear about what is at stake, the reasons lose their power and commitment. Do this exercise regularly. Update your list weekly. Add emotion to them. Read them out loud if necessary, and especially use them as an anchor when doubts arise, because the mind needs constant reminders. And when you remember the pains you are avoiding and the pleasures you are pursuing, every decision becomes easier because you are not acting on impulse, but from purpose. And that purpose, when it is clear and emotionally connected to, ignites a fire that is not extinguished by laziness, fatigue, or temptation, because you know who you are avoiding and what you are gaining. That knowledge not only gives you discipline, it gives you direction. Number 12. Avoid activities that increase short-term dopamine levels. We live in an age of easy, constant distractions. Your phone vibrates nonstop. You open a social network for 2 minutes and end up there for half an hour without realizing it. Do you know why? Because each of those little actions releases dopamine, a chemical in your brain that is associated with immediate pleasure. And while there is nothing intrinsically bad about feeling pleasure, the problem arises when your brain gets used to that constant stimulation, to the point where anything that requires real effort becomes boring, tiring, and even unbearable. Every time you give in to this type of instant gratification, like endless scrolling, video marathons, or endless video gameplay, you are telling your mind, "This is what I like. This is what I want to repeat." The worst thing is that this circuit is reinforced. Your brain starts to need more and more stimulation to feel something. And then tasks like studying, working, meditating, reading, and exercising seem impossible. Why? Because they don't provide the instant gratification. They don't release the same dose of dopamine. But they are the things that truly change your life. There is power in reducing or eliminating short-term dopamine-boosting activities. Because what you're doing isn't just stopping doing something superficial. You're training your brain to rediscover the slow, deep satisfaction of doing things that matter. At first, it's going to be hard, because you've conditioned your mind to always seek immediate rewards. But if you resist that first urge, you overcome the initial discomfort. Because of not picking up the phone every 5 minutes, something powerful happens. Your focus improves, your mental clarity improves, and your self-discipline is strengthened. This isn't about trying to deny yourself all pleasure. This is about taking control of deciding when, how, and why what you do, instead of letting yourself get dragged down by enough compulsion. Set boundaries. For example, you can schedule time to review your network limits, screen time with a digital control app, or even go on a dopamine diet for a few days to reset yourself. Brain science supports this. When the brain receives too much dopamine on a regular basis, the receptors become saturated, and the capacity to enjoy simpler stimuli decreases. When you wean it off of the source of quick rewards, your mind regains its natural sensitivity, and tasks that previously seemed boring start to make more sense and produce more real satisfaction. From a Stoic perspective, this aligns with their thinking. The Stoics highly valued moderation, self-control, and resistance to immediate gratification. Epictetus taught that we should not be slaves to our impulses, but rather to manage them. For them, true freedom is not doing whatever you want when you want, but having the power to choose wisely what works for you in the long run. Avoiding excess is not repression. Wisdom is strengthening the soul so that it does not depend on external stimuli for peace. So if you want to become more disciplined, do not force yourself to achieve your goals. Start by removing what steals your energy and your desire to fulfill them. Observe your day. How many times do you fall into the trap of instant gratification? What can you eliminate or reduce? What can you replace with something more conscious? Maybe put your phone away during your focus hours, like notification blackout time. Maybe replace 20 minutes of online with 20 minutes of reading or writing. This is not punishment. This is a smart choice. You are trading shallow pleasure for deep satisfaction. You are changing. You are regaining control of your energy, and that makes you a truly free person. Remember, every time you choose to delay the instant gratification you desire, it strengthens your character. You are sending a clear message to your mind. I decide, and that you Deciding is the foundation of everything. Long-lasting self-discipline is not about having more willpower. It's about having less of the noise that wears it out. When you clear your mental environment of excessive stimuli, you'll find that your energy is always there. It just needs space to bloom. Number 13, monitor and track progress. What isn't measured doesn't improve. That's a simple truth. But we often overlook it and believe that intention and effort alone are enough to make progress. But the truth is that if you're not tracking your progress, you're running blind. You can have all the motivation in the world. But if you don't know how much you've done, how much you're missing or what you need to adjust, it's easy to get stuck or give up without even realizing it. Tracking your progress isn't a waste of time. It's a powerful discipline tool because it makes you aware. It forces you to see your process clearly. And when you see the numbers, your progress is visible. You know that you are moving forward, no matter how small the steps, and the log becomes a constant source of motivation. Think about any goal you have right now, whether it's improving your body, learning a language, reading more, writing a book, saving money, or strengthening your relationships. Remember that all of these goals have one thing in common. They require consistency. But consistency isn't maintained by willpower alone. It's maintained by structure, and that structure is built when you measure what you're doing. For example, if you want to improve your focus, record how long you actually work without distraction. If you're working out, keep track of the number of repetitions of the weight and how you feel about building a habit. Mark the days when you stick to it, so you know if you're doing well or if you need to adjust. This isn't the only theory. Psychology has shown that monitoring your behavior activates self-regulatory mechanisms in the brain. Record your actions and your thoughts begin to compare, evaluate, correct, and so on. This reinforces intrinsic motivation that does not depend on external rewards, but from the quiet pride of seeing yourself progress. When you see that you wrote 1,000 words more than yesterday, when you spent 5 minutes more focused, when you went to the gym one more day this week, your mind interprets that you are progressing, and that is addictive, right? You don't need a complex system to do this. You can use a simple notebook or app. Even a spreadsheet will do. It is important to record your daily activities to keep moving forward, because those small actions will keep you connected to your goals. Giving you a concrete reference, the days when you feel like you failed come along. You can look back and realize that you have done more than you thought. This reinforces your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who is just trying, but as someone who is persisting, who is building, who is progressing. This Stoic principle also goes hand in hand with Marcus Aurelius' practice of self-observation and meditation. He kept a constant record of himself, his thoughts, decisions, and weaknesses, not because he wanted to be perfect, but because he understood that the path to virtue requires daily review. The Stoics believed that the soul should be reviewed every night, like a merchant reviews his accounts. Where did I fall short today? Where did I stand firm? What can I improve on? The practice of reviewing every night is an act of humility, awareness, and discipline. If you do it consistently, you will begin to notice patterns in your life. Find out what times of day you are most productive, what habits distract you, and what actions drive you. Then you will begin to live strategically with clarity and intention. Tracking turns your goals into something tangible instead of floating around like a vague dream. It gives you power because you are no longer sailing aimlessly. You are taking control of your life with precision, and precision is what makes the difference between those who just want to improve and those who actually do. So start today. Pick a goal. Decide how you will measure your progress and commit to recording it every day. It doesn't matter how small. What matters is that you see it. Because when you see your progress, you are connected to effort. And when you are connected to effort, discipline is no longer a burden, but a positive form of living. Number 14, don't trade good for bad moral license. One of the more subtle and dangerous pitfalls on the road to self-discipline is not failure, but poorly managed success. This happens when you do something well, and then unknowingly use that accomplishment as an excuse to sabotage yourself. This is called moral license. It's the thought that says, I worked out today, so I deserve to eat whatever I want, or I was productive this week, so it doesn't matter if I don't do anything today. At first glance, this sounds like common sense, but it's keeping you from what you really want, that you really want to build. Moral license is presented as a gift, but deep down, you are negotiating in disguise. Trading something good you have done for something you know is not good for you. You justify weak choices based on strong actions. And this cycle, if not stopped in time, can keep you stuck for years. You move forward a little and then backward. You celebrate small accomplishments and use them to undermine your commitment. Progress is lost. Effort becomes diluted. The problem is not about celebrating your progress, but about how you do it. If every small victory becomes a license to betray your own values, you will never build consistency. You are feeding yourself deception. Discipline only grows when it is based on coherence. Coherence between what you say you want, what you do to get it, and how you handle each decision afterward. You must continue to move forward. Every time you achieve something positive, don't disconnect. Don't relax. Reconnect with your why. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Are you saving for financial freedom? Then don't use your efforts as an excuse for impulsive spending. Are you taking care of your health? Then don't use a healthy week to justify a binge. Are you exercising your mind? Then don't use a good focused day as a license for a night of distraction. This mental shift is a powerful one because it's not about depriving yourself of pleasure. It's about learning to reward yourself without sabotaging yourself. Of course you can reward yourself, but do it with things that align with your identity. Do it in a way that brings you closer, not further away. You can give yourself a break, but let that break nourish you. You can celebrate it, but the celebration should lift you up, because the real reward is not what you give yourself for having progressed, but the progress itself that comes with peace. That commitment fulfills the confidence that grows every time you decide not to give up. From a Stoic perspective, this was well understood by the Stoics. They knew in self-control that the greatest danger lies not in open failure, but in self-deception. Epictetus subtly said that we should not let good deeds become an excuse to relax. For them, virtue is not accumulated as points that you can use, but it is a practice that needs to be done continuously. Stoic discipline is to remain steadfast to your goal, not only when you are correcting mistakes, but also when you are succeeding, because success is not a goal, but a way of life. When you practice not exchanging good for bad, something profound changes in you. You no longer using your accomplishments as justification for looking back. You begin to see your actions not as exceptions, but as part of a solid identity. An identity that you don't have to bargain with temptation because the focus is on the long term. So the next time you feel like you deserve to reward yourself, take a break. Ask yourself, is this strengthening my path or weakening it? Is this celebrating my progress or is it interrupting it? Is this consistent with the person I want to be? If the answer is not clear, don't act, breathe. Remember who you are and choose from your vision, not your emotions. Because in that moment, you are deciding something bigger than your timely actions. You are deciding whether progress is real or apparent. And when you choose consciously, you are not turning progress into regression. You are building more than just discipline. You are rewarding yourself. And there is no more powerful reward than that. Number 15, be aware of the effects and what importance. One of the more subtle yet common mistakes that can be damaging on the path of discipline is a seemingly harmless thought that hides a deep trap. What does it matter if you eat something you shouldn't? Skipping a day of training, skipping an important task, and otherwise correcting yourself, you are throwing yourself into chaos because you think, I've ruined the moment. It's not the mistake that matters, but what you decide to do afterward. The real damage doesn't come from the mistake, but from the series of decisions that continue when you decide to give up. This phenomenon occurs when our mind sees that we have failed once and would rather sink into emotional justifications for giving up. You eat something you shouldn't and think about what today is like. You skip a day of work and say, I've lost my fighting spirit. I'd better pick it up again on Monday. That mentality is meaningless. What needs to be done is rest or pleasure healthy is a form of sabotage in disguise. It is fear disguised as neglect. Resignation disguised as freedom. The problem is that this effect has a memory every time you repeat it. The mind records the association. When I fail, I ignore it and make it automatic. You lose the habit of recovering quickly. You become someone who lets mistakes undo all previous progress. This is where you lose the real battle. Because discipline is not measured by how many times you do everything perfectly, but by how many times you get up after you stumble. When you fail, the first thing to do is not to dramatize it. Don't make mistakes into existential drama. You made a mistake, yes, but it doesn't erase all your hard work. It doesn't undo your progress. And most importantly, it doesn't define who you are. The second answer is to be quick. Don't wait until tomorrow, until Monday or next month. Fix it as soon as possible. Continue your routine. If you eat something that shouldn't be, do the next one. If you miss a productive hour, don't take the time to build a narrative of defeat. Third, forgive yourself with fortitude, not out of weakness, but out of responsibility. Forgiveness is not permissiveness. It is an admission that you failed, learned, and moved on with the same strength and the same commitment. Whoever forgives himself with integrity, repeats the same mistakes over and over again, learns from them, becomes more conscious and stronger over time. From Stoicism, this idea is clearly reflected. The Stoics did not aspire to perfection, but to constant virtue. They knew that mistakes were part of the journey. Epictetus taught that when we fail, we should not punish ourselves with excessive guilt, but to correct ourselves with wisdom. Aurelius also wrote that there is no shame in falling, but shame in not getting back up. Waking up every day for the Stoics is new opportunity to do right. Every moment can be a renewal of commitment. The key is to treat each fall as a restart, not an end. When you practice responding calmly, responsibly, you break the cycle of self-destruction. You regain control. You regain self-esteem. You restore your discipline like this. The next time you fail, don't let it be the beginning of a failure. Make it a point where you reaffirm your commitment. Take control. You don't need a day to get to the next step. You just need to not give up. Every decision counts. Every recovery is stronger. The quicker you respond, the less power your destructive thoughts have about you. You are not here to do everything right. You are here to do it better and better. This involves failure, but it also involves persisting and recovering. Because it is not your failures that define you, but your ability to get back up. If you keep that principle, you will find space in your mind. You will know that mistakes are not the end, but the perfect opportunity to show yourself who you are truly determined to become. If you have reached the end of this video, it is not a coincidence. It says a lot about you. It shows that you are ready to leave your excuses behind and commit to your transformation. So now I want you to close this moment with a statement of commitment. Go to the comments and write, "I am breaking my boundaries. From now on, I am a Stoic." Do it like a promise to yourself. Because the words you write without any intention will only stay on the screen, recorded in your mind. And every time you read it, every time your brain repeats it, it will understand that you are truly changing. This is not just a video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.